Okay, so I've covered both of my sides of my Hundertwasser tree with my yellow, which is my lightest colour. As I was working on these, you can see here that this one has a bend in it, which has made it very weak and unstable. So when you're painting yours, you've got to be really careful to try and minimise this. Now, it may well happen, and you don't need to worry too much about it, because when we slot them together, what we'll do once they're fully built is we will reinforce them. So most likely we will glue gun these edges together, which will make it a much more solid structure and should hold it nice and firm. But obviously when this happens, don't worry about it too much, but do try when you're doing your sculptures not to let that happen. And when it does, just try and be very careful and gentle with those joins. Okay, so now we've put our first layer on. This is where we can come back to our tracing paper. Now, we are going to have some cardboard added onto these, but we're not going to put that on until the last stage. And the reason for that is that when these slot together, they fit quite snugly against one another. Now, if we start to put cardboard onto this surface, these are no longer going to fit. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint all of our patterns on, and then when we've put them together, we will then pick out little sections that we will then paint and start to stick on, so that we get a nice 3D relief effect. And what we can do while we're doing that is also use that to help create a stronger structure, but I will discuss that in more detail with you as we move through the project. So what we want to do for now is go back to this tracing. So now we have some paint on the surface of our cardboard. What you will notice is that your designs will start to show up a little bit better. And what I'm going to do now is look over at my work, and I can see that I've used some green. And what I want to do at this point is just go round those lines where I'm going to put my green in, and where I'm going to save my yellow. So those sections that I want to stay yellow, I'm going to just draw around those. And what we want to make sure is that we still have our work in front of us all the time, so that we can refer to it and make sure that we're putting things in the right place. I can actually see as I'm doing this that there's one bit I've forgotten to trace out, so I'm going to just go round that quite heavily so that I'll be able to see that. When I come to put the next layers on. So that's going to be green there. And I'm also just going to mark out, I've got some areas here that are going to be sort of lighter pink, and I'm just going to mark those out as well. Now, some of you are going to start this and you're going to start to get quite confused. Don't worry too much if your colours don't stay exactly the same. The design can change and the design can evolve. So if you don't get this exactly right, then don't start to panic. It doesn't matter too much. I know sometimes what it can be like when you're looking at something and there's all these different colours and all these different lines, and you get a little bit lost and you're not quite sure where you are. So I'm going to lift that off, and you can see now where those colours are on the top. And then if I turn my page to where my trunk was, I can do the same there. So I can just put my tracing over the top of my tree trunk, and I can mark out those areas that are staying green. Now, if it goes over the top of your the cut that you've made to join the two pieces together, that's fine. I think actually for you guys, as you're not putting your cut in until slightly later, so I don't think it will matter as much for you. So I've marked those in there. If you can't see them very clearly, these ones aren't showing up as well as they could do, you can just mark those lines in afterwards, just so that you can see which bits you're painting, which bits you're not. And remember as well to always have that that sheet with you, your sketchbook with you, so you can see what you've done. and where you want your colours to go. And that will help avoid quite a lot of confusion that you might feel. Right, so with my book in front of me, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add in a green. Now I don't have green on my palette, as you can see here. And at this point, you should have an awareness of mixing your colours together and what can be achieved by that. So yellow is a primary, and if I pick up a blue, a little bit of blue, and I put that in, that's going to make green. Blue is also a primary colour. So what I've now created is a secondary colour, and that secondary colour is green. So I've mixed that with quite a thick brush, and what I'm actually going to do is just go down a size. Now you might not have a smaller brush available to you. I'm going to mix a little more of that to make sure that I've got enough. I put a bit too much blue in there. You can see how that's gone a bit darker than ideally I want. So just add a little bit of yellow into this section. Not into all of it, just into half of it. And then I get a lighter green and a darker green, which should work well for me. I'm just going to twist that paint off my brush and then just do a quick switch to a slightly smaller brush. And then what I'm going to do is, looking at those areas that I've drawn around and looking at where I want it to stay yellow, I'm going to start to paint in that green. So just as before, nice long brush strokes. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that like that, and then I'm going to look at my Hundertwasser design here, and I'm going to start to mix up some of the other colours that are going into the other sections. And then as you watch this progressing, you should see how those colours slowly start to build up and my design starts to take shape. Okay, so that's the first layer of the Hundertwasser tree all painted up. Now obviously I want to repeat that process on all sides of my tree so that when it slots together, those designs match up with one another. Obviously that's quite a lot of work that needs to be done. What we can do if you are really struggling with the painting is we can use felt tip pens to do some of the detail work, but we can talk about that during lesson time and your teacher will be able to help you with that.